What is up, CSGs? It is that time of the month again where we look at how the Rockets are doing in the 10-game spans. We are at 42 games right now, so it's a little off, but it kind of makes sense because I think we did 32 games last time, so it matches up. But one game above the halfway mark of the season, coming off the loss against Detroit, that was an ugly loss, bro. I ain't even going to hold y'all, bro. I ain't going to hold y'all. I guess because it was a holiday. It was Martin Luther King Day, so the players decided to commemorate the holiday by not showing up to the game because Detroit put BTA on us and really took it. And Cade looking like a superstar. We look kind of tired and soft. I ain't gonna lie. It was not the effort that I was expecting from the players. Everybody just seemed disjointed. There was no rhythm to the game. But, it is what it is. You take those L's. You expect random losses. Kind of thought it would be a tough game since it was an early game. It's something about those early games that we don't do good against. I don't know what it is about playing in the afternoons that our guys just can't get up for. I don't know if they're staying up too late. I don't know what it is. But shout out to Detroit. They look like we did last year. Redefining their identity. A team that's scrappy. They play hard defense. They just get after it. They rebound. They do all the stuff you like. So shout out to them turning their team around. Really love to see some of these young teams getting into those talks of possibly being in the playoffs and things like that. I think it's good for the league to have young teams kind of step up. It's good for viewership. It's good for rivalry. But overall, great game. But here we are, 42 games in. So we're going to check in on the team and see how guys are doing. I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to isolate some of our players just to give you guys some of my insight and some things that I'm seeing and why, some of the questions that may come up in the fan base through these games, right? Especially since Jabari's being hurt. There's a lot of things that are all over the place. So we're going to try to answer some of those in this video. First thing, house cleaning. Let's go. 42 games in, offensive rating 113.9. We are 10th in the league in offensive rating, which is the highest I think it's probably been in the Ime Udoka era. And you ask, how does a team that can't shoot be that high in offensive rating? We win everywhere else. We win on the boards. We win on defense. We're going to win on loose balls, deflection, steals, transition. We do all the little things that help a team win. We just don't do one of the biggest things, which is shoot really well. If we could shoot, bro, we'd be OKC. Like we would be another version of the OKC Thunder. But, we win. We win and make winning plays. I think that's why we are the number 2 in the West right now. But being a third, being 10th in the offensive rating is impressive. Defensive rating, 107.7. We're 4th in the league right now. We've been top 5 pretty much the whole season. Down 2 spots from the last video where we were looking at 32 games. Defense is starting to slide a little bit without Jabari Smith in the lineup, and we'll talk about why later on in the video. Net rated, staying the same, 6.1. Which is 5th in the league, went up 1. So we are a good team. It's not no tricks. It's not cap, right? This is who we are. We're a team that is going to hustle. We're going to get rebounds. We're going to run in transition. We're going to play hard defense. We're going to make you earn it, unless your name is the Detroit Pistons. And shout out to them, bro. Them boys went to Buc-ee's after the game. They came in. They kicked our asses, then went to Buc-ee's and bought souvenirs. You got to love it. You got to love it. Our shooting is, still bottom in the league. 51% EFG, 54% true shooting. Nothing to write home about. Slightly improved, but we are what we are. I think I already said that in the last video. You got to accept what the team is as what they are. So let's move on. Let's look at our lineup data now. We got our starters holding strong. This is the starters as it was prior to Jabari Smith's injury. Still a net positive. We're the 51st best lineup in the league. That's all the lineups, not just starting fives, which is pretty good. A plus 8.4 in 857 possessions. That's pretty good. The lineup that is currently starting right now with Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Amen, Dillon, and Sengun is in 269 possessions. Our second most frequent lineup right now. We're struggling, minus 10.8. As much as aesthetically good as they look, they have not been good statistically. When our starters are out, more than often we're losing those minutes, and it takes combinations of different lineups, whether it's the bench, whether it's moving players around to try to get us back into these games. But as it stands right now, that lineup isn't working. I have my theories. I'll try to expand on some of them as the video goes along, but a net 10.8 the gap on that lineup is getting worse. It was actually, I think it was, to start off, it was like a -2. Now it's gone over to a -10. I thought giving it more possessions would help it out, normalize. It's actually getting worse. So this starting five, for some reason, doesn't work. I have my theories, like I said, but as it stands right now, in those 269 possessions, look at the offensive rating, 109, and giving up 120 points per possession on defense. This lineup doesn't work. It does not work long term, and we're going to talk about why going forward. So when we look at the on-off impact of our players currently on Fred VanVleet, when he's on the court, we are winning by plus 7.9. When he's off the court, we're winning by plus 5. So about a 2-point difference. So we're 2 points better. We're 2 points better with him on the court, which meets the eye test. Is not as wide of a gap as it was last year, because he's kind of struggled in the current starting lineup. So if we're trying to figure out what doesn't work about the lineup, when Fred is not in the lineup, I'm not talking about the Jabari line. I'm talking about the men in place of Dylan and Dylan in place of Jabari. So it's Jalen, Amen, Dylan, and Sengun. If you put anybody else but Fred in that lineup, it's a plus 37.2 in 124 possessions. So that's kind of a big deal. That's pretty significant. There is something that he doesn't work in that lineup with the way it's configured. I don't think it's a Fred thing. I think it's a lineup thing. So y'all stay off the agendas off of Fred. But plus 37, that's a big deal. And you look at some of the lineups, if you want to get, like, I kind of got curious and looked at which ones actually are the non-Fred lineups when Jabari isn't there. You look at it, Jalen Green and Amen Thompson backcourt with Dylan and Tari Eason. 60 possessions, a plus 48. So that's a crazy lineup. Jalen Green and Amen Thompson backcourt. Dylan Brooks again with Jeff Green, a plus 2. Jalen Green and Amen Thompson. Dylan again, that trio with Jayshawn Tate, a plus 149. That doesn't count. Low possessions, low volume. But in aggregate, in 124 possession, usually with some combination of Jalen and Amen, Sengun are the three constants. Looks like Dylan is in all 5 lineups, a plus 37.2. So there is something that just doesn't click when Fred is in this lineup. I think, this is me personally, I think it has to do with the play style, right, of Fred. Fred is another on-ball creator. Jalen Green is getting more reps on ball. There are so many possessions that Amen Thompson can get reps on ball. And if it's Jalen and Fred on ball, more than likely it's going to end either with a pass to the big, Sengun in this case, or it's going to end with them trying to take a shot or just swinging it around. And the reason to me that on the offensive end where that's problematic for Amen Thompson is that he only feeds off of the cuts. And how many times have we seen in a half-court set Fred pass to Amen cutting? Or Jalen pass to Amen cutting, or Jalen assist to Amen. If it's not a attempted three-pointer, which he's not good at. The only player that actually assists to Amen, well, not only, but the most frequent plays for Amen to score in a half court is going to be a Sengun pass off of a short roll. So those lineups, when you replace Jabari or you put somebody else that's not a ball handler, it just allows Amen more opportunities. One, to handle the ball, and you think of some of the things that they do when he has the ball, a lot of pick and roll, where he gets to the basket, gets downhill. It just, with that, to me, there's just too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to on-ball reps. When it's those 3 guards on there, there's something that just works when you have Jalen, Amen, and 3 kind of facilitator, swingmen. Sengun is going to be what he does, but, you have a shooters, basically. So I think the 3 ball handlers thing doesn't work for Amen right now because it kind of really highlights some of his weakness on offense. On the defensive end, I think if you look at some of these, some of the better lineups with Amen Thompson, we'll look at them. It's a Jabari thing. Jabari and Amen work. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, now looking at Dylan Brooks, he is when he's on court plus 6.9, so we're winning the game by plus 6.9. When he is off court, plus 7.3. So about we're 1 point better with Dylan off the court. This is something new, right? This really speaks to him struggling recently in the month of January, kind of the end of December into January. Most of the time, Dylan has been a major positive. This is kind of the first time you see that, even though we're not bad with him on. We're a good team. So most of our team lineups that Ime puts out are going to be positive. But with Dylan on the court and Dylan off the court, where we're winning by a little bit, insignificant, but something to keep an eye on as the season goes along. When you take him out of that starting five without Jabari, right? So it's Amen, Fred, you have Sengun and Jalen plus 21.1 in 66 possessions. So we are better with him on that lineup. So once again, there's something about that lineup with when you have Dylan Brooks and then you have Amen Thompson and Fred VanVleet. And I already said this in a previous video. I think it's because of he is trying to play Jabari's role, and he is just not Jabari. He's not Jabari in multiple ways. Offensively, he is a guy that is going to try to take attempts. That is not passing, right? Jabari is a good swing man. You know, he attacks closeout, pretty, low usage player that it's not going to really dribble the ball. So he just kind of gets it out, keeps the offense humming. Secondly, on defense, Dylan Brooks is not boxing out, right? He's not boxing out. He's not going to rebound. And when we talk about why man is effective, you're going to see why that's impacting the team negatively with these lineups. So I think Dylan being a plus 21 when he's off the court and there's anybody else in his place, whether it's Tari Eason, whether it's Cam Whitmore, Holiday, it just works better because those players are better rebounders, more dynamic, more passive in their role on offense. And we're going to look at 3-and-D, right? That's what Dylan's tag is. He's kind of struggling. He's struggling, especially in the month of January. You look at his three-point percentage and defended field goal percentage. So the defensive field goal percentage or defended field goal percentage looks at his opponent's shooting percentage when he is guarded by Dylan Brooks, whoever that is, right? This aggregates all his different lineups and different players that he's guarded, right? So October, he kind of struggled in those 5 or 6 games we had, so not really much there. 31% three-point shooting, and 49% were his opponents shooting on him, right? November, this is when Dylan started to pick it up. He was shooting 40% from three on good volume. Opponents below 40%, holding guys to 39% on shooting, which is elite. At that point, he was like one of the best players on the team. He was probably our MVP. Going into December, same 40.3%. So his three-point shooting withheld. And then you see the opponent field goal percentage go up a little bit. And then now in the month of January, we're back at 31% three-point shooting. And he is giving up 52% on the other end. So he is getting cooked, right? He's getting cooked and he's not shooting well. That's that wide margin that you see in the current lineup that we have. When he's not on the court, we're actually better because usually replace him with Tari or somebody else that's just a flat-out better defender. You could say it's his matchups, but they haven't really changed that much. I really haven't figured out why he's struggling on shooting his threes. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's his legs are tired. Maybe it's a wall that the team has hit on this point. But we need Dylan to be November, December Dylan in order for us to be able to win games going down the stretch, especially with the stretch we got coming up. So I hope he picks it up because we're going to need it. We cannot survive him shooting 31% because he is, we're not a great shooting team, and he was one of the few positives on the team. And now that Jalen's picking it up, he's starting to go down. It's crazy. We can never have our cake and eat it too. It's the most annoying thing, right? It's like you have peanut butter. No, I'm gonna quote Chris Tucker. It's like you got peanut butter, you ain't got no jelly, right? We got rice, we ain't got no beans. It's like we can't have nothing at the same time. Jalen and Sengun can't be all-stars at the same time. Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green can't shoot good at the same time. Like we need these guys to just click all at once. But that's how things go in sports. But he definitely needs to pick it up. I expect him to pick it up. If we can just make it to the All-Star break, I think that we can get November, December Dylan again. Okay, let's look at Sengun. Sengun on court a +9. I think that's probably the team high for the starters. Off court a +3, so about a 6-point difference. Still one of our most important players on the team. When he's not on the floor, we struggle, right? We struggle in most of our lineups. And when you take him out of the starting five, with the current starting five with the men, we are losing the game by -1.5. So I think he is one of the few players that we actually lose when he's not on the court. So despite all his struggles, and I know a lot of people are nervous about him. I'm not, and I'm going to explain why. About his offense, I think defensively, I would say 80% of the game so far, he's been pretty good. Some games he's been really elite. Some games he's lazy to start. He really needs to pick it up. I can really tell about how he's going to play, how he rebounds the ball. When he's rebounding good, he's locked in. Sometimes he gets a bit too passive, right? But overall, I would say this year, Sengun, all around, except his offensive numbers per se, he has been a really, really good player. Rebounding better, defending better, etc. He's taking leaps in multiple areas. So let's drill down and see. So what we're going to look at is what I've kind of drill down and looked at his play styles, because I'm thinking like, bro, this dude's really struggling on a lot of random stuff that he normally makes look easy. But if you really look at the numbers, he's improved in some areas of his offensive game, and he's kind of regressed in some of the other areas. But I have a theory. Okay, so my theory is that it's because he has changed his play style this season more than any other season, and we're gonna look at it. So first things first, let's look at his play style on isolations. So we're gonna compare him last year to this year. So last season, 10.8% of his the frequency of his play. So about 10% of his offensive reps were in isolation, right? Which is, pretty high for a center. 0.82 points per possession, which put him in the 32nd percentile, which is probably bottom third in the league. So not a great ISO player, right? This season, he has increased his volume on isolations. 0.93, he is in the 64th. So he is in the upper echelon of ISO players. If you look at the list of isolation players, there's not a lot of centers on there that are doing this, right? That 13.2. And I want you guys to keep in mind, there's a certain archetype of player that has this shot distribution, this play style distribution. It's not your typical center. Okay, keep that in mind. So he is improved in isolation. He's up in the upper half of the league in isolation, close to the top 25%, top 30%. Increased his frequency, 0.93 is pretty good. Okay, now pick and roll man. This is what most centers do. Last year, if you guys know, we spammed the hell out of the pick and roll, and he was 26.2. That was about a fourth, a little bit over a fourth of his plays were in the pick and roll, and he was good. 50th percentile, not great, because once again, Sengun is different than other centers. I want you guys to really remember that when you try to evaluate his efficiency, you cannot do it comparing him to like Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert. Any center that's just a role like Jared Allen. You got to compare him to centers that are really ISO heavy, kind of play unorthodox. They attack mismatches one-on-one. You're thinking about Joel Embiid, a little bit of Jokic, kind of that, but really that Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, kind of that mold of players, right? And if you compare them to those players, it really does open up to see what Ime is actually trying to do with him, right? So last year, pick and rolls, most of his plays, he was decent, right above half. Better than half the centers in the league. Not great, but decent. That's probably why our offense was This year, they've decreased that, right? And he is actually worse than the pick and roll. 20.2 frequency. So the frequency of the pick and rolls went down, and he is not getting those looks. And if you look at the film, the defenses are playing him a lot different. He started struggling in the pick and roll towards the end of the year last year before he got hurt, kind of before the All-Star game when our offense took a big dive. And it's because they started loading up, right? So this year you get to see a different defense, and he is really struggling in that. So they don't do as much pick and roll. And I think it's also part of the fact that him and Fred VanVleet aren't the primary spam offense right now. With Jalen getting into his own, it's a different look. Because Jalen can get into the pick and roll with multiple players. He can get it with a man. He can get it with a guard. He can get it with Sengun. So that frequency goes down. So we're not relying on Sengun as a roll man as much, whereas he's getting more ISOs and other play styles. Post-ups. His post-up possessions went up this year as well. You can look at last year, 45th percentile, only 0.96. He's improved in the post-ups dramatically, right? 20% of his plays. So almost a fifth of the plays he gets are post-up. 1.06 points per possession, 66th percentile in the league, right? So you can kind of get a picture of what Ime is trying to do with him when you see the plays that they put him in. think about, okay, what is his strengths right now, or what are they trying to mold them into? Remember the interview where Ime, I forgot who wrote that. I think it was Kelly Iko, where Ime compared him to Joel Embiid. So he has a vision in his head. And I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of the players do not, especially his age, they don't get to pick their play styles all the time. Ime wants him in post-ups. They tell him those plays. Those are the actions. When I see them do stuff out of timeout, whether it's him top of the key, him on the left block trying to get a post up, this is what the coach is telling him to do, and this is why, right? He is improving in this area of his game. He is improving. So his post ups have gotten better. The frequency has gotten better as well. Okay, so here's something that I had noticed when I was looking at his shooting, because I'm still trying to figure, like, bro, this dude is really struggling. You look at 24-25, which is this current year, at the rim, Sengun is shooting 63% this year, which is low. That's low. Last year at the rim, 69%, so almost 70%. So that's a big, huge difference in his shooting at the rim. But once again, it's really just comes down to him making layups. Like the looks are different. Yes, he's seeing more of a crowd in the paint, but his finishing, that's really what it comes down to. Just make your layups, bro. Because I think the moves to get there, the process, everything is still good, right? He's beating players. He's just getting to the rim and whiffing layups. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried. Whatever is causing that that's something that he's going to have to address, hopefully in the All-Star break, if not this offseason. But it's there. He's going to improve on it. Don't worry about that too much, because what you want to look at, just like with Jalen Green, you want to look at process. Right. I think his shot selection could be a lot better. So that's something he can improve on to make it easier. I think they probably should do a little bit more pick and roll. But his shot selection is extremely tough. I want you to focus in on that 10 to 16 feet range on this graphic here. In the 10 to 16 feet range, he has taken 102 shots in 42 games this year so far, shooting 47% on those. Shooting 47% on that 10, 16 feet. Last year, he took 113, shot 51%. That 10 to 16 range is abnormal shot selection for a big man. There's not a lot of bigs, maybe one or two actually, that actually take that level of shots, that volume from that range as a shooter, right? And he's only halfway through the season. He's going to eclipse that 113 mark probably in like 2 games. So once again, his play style is changing. He's taking harder shots, and it's the shot put shot, it's the fadeaways, it's the pull up jumpers. These are the shots. Okay, so you want to see how rare that is. This is a list of from that range, roughly that range in the NBA. NBA.com doesn't have it to 16 feet; it has 10 to 14 feet. So still roughly in that range. For over 90 field goal attempts in that range, because Sengun has what? He has what? 90. He is at 102. It's like on NBA, he's like at 90 something on the 10 to 14. The 16 adds a couple more, but roughly he's about 90 something. So over 90 field goal attempts from that kind of that mid-range area. Look at the list of players that even take this many attempts: SGA, Devin Booker, Jalen Brunson, KD, Fox, Bridges, Jalen Williams, Alperen Sengun, Kate Cunningham, DeMar DeRozan, Pascal Siakam, and Bam Adebayo. And look where he ranks in efficiency from that range. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th, ahead of K, DeMar, Pascal, and Bam. So when you're judging his shooting efficiency, yes, he is terrible at making layups right now. 63% is unacceptable at those layups. But those layups, he's going to make layups. I'm not worried about no damn layups. I see the vision of what Ime is trying to build. There is a progression towards the type of player that Sengun's going to be that I think, given the fact that when he rolls, he is not a lob threat, so those layups aren't ever going to be like super duper high. He needs to become a kind of an in-between god. When he's in that in-between range, he needs to get above 50%, get to that kind of that KD 52% level. But brothers, I want you guys and sisters, your center is number what did I say? 8 in the NBA in high frequency mid-range shots. That's with SGA, Booker. This is gonna save him in the playoffs. Now, he struggles outside of the 16 feet and 3-pointers and on the interior. When you're struggling on the interior, it really crashes out his true shooting percentage. But when you look at his efficiency in isolation, was in the top 30th, 30th percent of the league. When you look at him on post-ups, top 30% of the league. When you look at the fact that he can hit the mid-range, these are things that you can kind of glean from and see where he's progressing towards as he's going to mature and age in the league. I love this. I'm not going to lie. I think his problem for me right now is that he's taking bad shots. Like, there are times where you should take the mid-range. He's going to like crash into a 3 or 4 people. There are times where he should roll and just take the easy layup that he's going to stop and try to get an isolation in the mid-range. There are times where he should just pass the ball, that he's going to keep it and try to ISO. Same thing with Jalen Green. It's a thing that he's going to have to figure out. The passing has improved progressively, not as fast as I want it this year as far as the decision-making. When he's in the short roll, you can see he's getting the ball out quicker to the corners, to the cutters, to the shooters. The shot selection is really going to clean up a lot of the efficiency when he's able to read it. But this is a massive shift in his play style. But so when you look at his game, you cannot judge him like you do Sabonis or any center that's just out there just screening or rolling. You got to judge him damn near as almost like a wing that can screen and roll, a screening wing. I don't even know what player. I guess the closest thing, I would say Bam Adebayo, and you look at Bam's true shooting, 51%, which kind of like Bam takes a lot of jumpers out the mid-range, not really a leaper, so he's not a great roll threat. So you can kind of see how you fall into that range where your true shooting is going to be kind of low. And the free throws is really killing his TS percentage. That's really what's killing it. Okay, so now Amen Thompson on court plus 6.3, off court plus 8.2. So we're about 2 points better when he's off the court. This is an aggregate for the whole season. With the current starters, when he is not on the floor, we're 5 points better. We've already seen that we're minus 10. I think the biggest culprits for that is not Amen Thompson, it's Fred and Dylan, as we've shown with their wide margins, because obviously Amen is a player that thrives off of transition and pace, right? Transition and pace. Fred and Dylan are probably our two slow pace players, not great in transition. So you look at his on-off impact. I want you guys to look at something. When you think about Amen Thompson, what do you think about, right? You think about rebounding. You think about getting stops. You think about running, getting into fast breaks, getting into transition. Really, a lot of it comes off of our rebounding. He just adds so much to our rebounding. So I wanted to look at, like, what is the big difference right now with our lineups? Even though Amen is in there, what's going on? Why aren't we as effective with our rebounding? Our rebounding has gone down lately. And it is Jabari. It's Jabari. I had a feeling about this. My theory is that Jabari boxes out. Jabari boxes out. He's another big body that you could put in the paint to help out with Sengun. Because right now, when you watch the games, there's not a lot of players boxing out. Sengun boxes his man out, and then a lot of people are just whipping us to the glass, right? Our guards aren't boxing out. Dylan damn sure ain't boxing out. A man is usually POA, so it's hard for him to box out when you're POA. So Jabari boxes out. He does little stuff, right? He's another big body to put on a body. And look at our best rebounding lineups, right? You look at it on the offensive side. Offensive rebounds. Top lineup that we have rebounding is Fred, Jalen, Amen, Jabari, Sengun, right? One of the best rebounding lineups in the NBA, right? Offensive rebounding percentage in the half court, 44%. That's nuts, right? That is nuts. That's why we're really top in the league in that, right? Second best is Jabari with Amen, right? Jalen, Dylan, and Sengun. So it's that kind of that trio of Amen, Jabari, Sengun. Third best, you get Fred, Jalen, Dylan, Jabari, and Sengun, right? Jabari again. Then when we start crashing down, you can see 24%, which will be bottom half in the league, right? When you take Jabari out and you put Dylan Brooks in his place, who doesn't box out, we become a light blue, which on cleaning the glass means that you're not ranking high. The hotter your orange, the better you are. And then with Fred, Amen, Dylan, Jabari, and Sengun, this lineup is really, really bad on rebounding. I'm not sure why this one is like that, but it could be an outlier. But most of the lineups that we have great rebounding in involve Alperen Jabari, Sengun in some way, shape, or form. Low key, I'm just seeing this in real time while I'm looking at this. Involves Jalen Green. Shout out to JG. So the 4-man rebounding. So when you take out, if you look at that fifth lineup, Jalen is not in there. So I don't know. Maybe having Fred and Dylan out there, and Dylan having to play Jabari's role is not really great. Like, you have to kind of supplement our rebounding in some way, shape, or form, whether from the guard position or from that wing position. I just don't think there's enough of it with the current lineup that we have, unless Dylan would commit more to that role. And you look at it on when we give up offensive rebounds to the other team, when Jabari's out there with JG, Amen, Dylan, Jabari, and Sengun, 9.5% is the lowest in the NBA, one of the lowest, one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league, right? And then it kind of crashes out from there. And the top 4 lineups that we're really good at this at involve Jabari Smith Jr. The ones that don't have him, we don't do good at. So that is pretty much that simple when it comes to our issues without Jabari. It comes down to rebounding. And remember, we win doing little stuff, right? We don't shoot well, so we got to win on the edges. And if you're not rebounding, which is to me one of the most important things, we're going to struggle. Okay, let's talk about Jalen Green. When he is on the court, plus 4.8. When he's off the court, plus 12.6. The starters without JG, this starting lineup with Amen, without Jabari, right? A plus 33.5 and 85 possessions. I think some of these lineups are from before Jabari actually got hurt. The most recent, his positive stretch has been, it's in there, but it's still a big gap, still a huge gap. It's more of how good Amen and Sengun and Dylan have been, right? Our best lineup is plus 31 when those 3 are playing, and I think that one does not feature Jalen, right? So it's carrying over. I suspect this will get better as the year goes along. Y'all got to remember, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting from earlier in the season, but his recent play has been a major positive. But in aggregate, this is a very wide margin for it. But also, just like with Sengun, when you guys judge Jalen as it relates to his success and what he's doing, once again, I like looking at the macro view to see what he's really improved on, right? So let's look at one of his highest frequency plays, the pick and roll ball handler, right? Jalen has improved so much in the pick and roll in this season that it is really scary for the league. And if this trend keeps going forward, you're going to have something on your hands. In his rookie year in 21-22, he only ran at 29% of the time, which is not too bad. 0.81. He was 44th percentile in the NBA, so bottom half. Second year with Silas, 43%. So they just fed him the rock. So his rookie year, he was kind of playing with Christian Wood, who grabbed a lot of plays, KPJ. Eric Gordon was on that team. The second year, you go on to having him and KBJ kind of run the team, and they went crazy with the PNRs, right? He got a little bit better, but still bottom of the league, right? Still bottom half of the league in those lineups. Ime comes, right? His frequency goes down slightly. Still putting him in the pick and roll, but he improves, goes to 0.9 points per possession. So cracking the 0.9 range now, 61st percentile. And then now in this season, 40% of his plays, almost half his plays are in pick and roll, 0.94, which is almost top third in the league, right? 69th percentile in the league. This is really, and this is accounting for his bad shooting to start off the year. This is not even factoring what he could do if he sustains some level of consistency for the rest of the season. So keep an eye on that. And the really what you want to see with the points per possession and pick and roll is for that to keep climbing up. When you get to when you hit that 1 mark, you're in elite territory. When you get to 1, I'm sure NBA.com doesn't allow you to isolate these by date. If you isolated his January points per possession and pick and roll, it's probably like 1.1 something. And that's like MVP Harden level, just because he comes off screens and is shooting so well from the 3. And they count those as pick and roll reps. When you shoot from the 3, get to the basket and make your layups. When you get to the free throw line, all that is factored into your points per possession. And I think he's probably in some all NBA level in this month so far. Like I said, if you are a GM and you're seeing these trends and you see what he can do, And if you can get him to not even just be as great as he's been recently, but some level of normalcy where it's like not the low lows, but just mediums and the occasional highs, scary player, brother. Very scary for Jalen Green. But love what I'm seeing from him. I think this half of the season is going to be erased by the next half of the season for him. I can almost guarantee, I'll bet y'all by the end of the year, some of those gaps with the on-offs with him on the court, off the court are going to tighten. He may flip some of those to positives. The way he's playing right now. But just overall, just wanted to look at the team. My biggest takeaways right now, we definitely need Jabari for the playoff run. I don't know when he's going to come back. I think that he brings a lot to the team that a lot of people don't value, but I do. You know, it's not always just shooting. That's why I always tell you guys, I look at process. Like, what are we doing? How are we doing? Are we doing it right? Not just what is the shooting percentage. I look at the process for all our players. So keep the process in mind. And keep the big picture in mind when it comes to some of our younger players. They are improving. You don't get to number 2 in the West on the backs of these young players because Fred hasn't been great this year. Right? Fred is falling back to and being a role player as the guy that facilitates and keeps the ball safe, which is great. Right? Dylan, role player. Right? But you look at most of our winning is coming off the backs of Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari, some guys off the bench. And that's what you want to see. These trends are showing that the team may be ready to pop off on their own with some of these young guys. But it really does depend on their development. I think this summer, Jalen needs to get his handles tighter. I think Amen needs to get his handles tighter so he can get more on-ball reps if he's going to be in the backcourt, which I think he can and should be. I think Sengun needs to keep working on his game. He needs to work on his shot. That mid-range shot needs to be efficient, right? I think the finishing will come when he gets his legs a little bit stronger. I'm not going to give him the excuse of injury, but I've never seen a player have a season-ending injury and be back to who they were the next season. It usually takes 1 year of playing, then you come back again. So I'm going to give him that. Just keep an eye on that. I think next year with Jalen and Sengun and Amen, who I think is my future big 3 for this team as far as when it comes to like who's going to be carrying a lot of the burden of the team. You're going to see a lot of some of the stuff they're doing on the highs normalize out. And what does that look like for the team? Where he's the second seed? Who knows? But if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop. I'm going to keep dropping that.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.